You can start, please.
Okay. So good evening, everyone, and welcome to this class, Introduction to LI Writing. I hope you have been having a great time in the internship. I was also a part of the internship, I think some 2-3 years ago, and it was quite a great experience for me. So I want you to take it seriously and learn all that you can. I trust the ready writers. I know they don't do fluff, they don't do rubbish. So you can be sure you get the best out of the program. So today we are looking at LI writing. And when we talk about LI writing, it's a kind of writing niche, and it focuses on writing educational content, writing for educational purposes, targeting pupils or students in schools from the primary school, pre-primary school to primary school, and even up to the secondary school, the junior and senior secondary classes. So we derive the term LI from elementary and high school. So this type of writing includes textbooks, workbooks, lesson plans, other supplementary materials like maps, like different materials.
Kemi, we can't hear you again. You're talking, but we lost your audio. Oh, I think it's network. Sorry, guys. Let's hope she joins us back on time.
Knowledge at the purpose of this kind of writing, like I said earlier, is to impart knowledge at the primary level, and the secondary level. Let's move on. So there are key characteristics of this kind of writing. You know, when you're talking about writing, there are certain characteristics for each kind of writing has its own unique features. So for LI writing, there are certain things that every LI writer must put in mind. One, this kind of writing is audience specific. You are writing for a particular audience. Like I said, you are writing for pupils, you are writing for students at the lower and the upper upper classes. I'm not talking about university writing this time around. But writing for students in primary schools and those in junior and secondary classes, those are the kind of writings that fall under this LI writing. So your audience are pupils. Then there's a goal that you are aiming at, and your goal is to impart knowledge to help these students pass their exams. Also, this kind of writing must be curriculum aligned, must be curriculum compliant. There's a curriculum standard that you must follow. You don't just pick your pen one day and start writing for use in schools. There has to be, you have to study the curriculum and write according to the dictates of the curriculum. In Nigeria, there's a body that sees to our curriculum, and that's the NERDC, that's the Nigerian Educational Research and Development Commission. Their goal is to prepare curriculum that publishers write textbooks on. So this kind of writing, like I said, is curriculum aligned. Also, it is structured and organized. There's a way you move from the known to unknown. You don't just write anyhow, because you are taking you come to your writing with the mind that the students don't know what you want to tell them. So you have to teach them take them through the processes so that you can impart knowledge accurately. So your content must also be engaging and accessible. Engaging in the terms that you use clear language, you use visuals, you use interactive elements that will help students to understand what you are teaching. Let's move ahead. So we're going to be looking at the overview of the course. Yes, the course outline. What are we going to be doing in this course? Today, we are going to be looking at these key features. By the time you are grounded in these key sections, then you can confidently start writing for educational purpose for elementary and high schools. Number one, we have to, these are the things that I broke down this course into these key sections so that you know what you have to do before writing, what you have to do during writing, and what. So the number one thing is to understand educational standards. Then we go on to research and market analysis, knowing your audience, structuring your content, your writing style and tone, visuals and visual designs and layouts. Then how do you make money from LI writing? I'm sure a lot of us are waiting for that point. But these basic things must first be understood. So how do you make profits from LI writing? And then I'll take you through some practical tips that can help you as LI writer. Now, like I said earlier, you have to understand that you are writing according to a curriculum. So you are writing this kind of yes, the next one, when you're writing elementary and high school writing, is that there are curriculum standards. So you must study the relevant curriculum. Like I said, we have the NERDC that gives us the curriculum for the nation at the national level. Also, we have states, like I know for Lagos State in particular, that they have a guide for use in classrooms. So most publishers structure their writing to fit into the national curriculum and also some state curriculum. The state curriculum are actually gleaned from the national curriculum. So just to make sure there's a balance, they, infuse aspects from both ends. So you have to understand the curriculum you're writing for, and this varies according to subjects, states, and countries. Now, the kind of curriculum you will find in Nigeria is different from the kind of curriculum they are running in the US or UK and other foreign countries. So you can't just bring a manuscript from overseas and say you want to publish it in Nigeria. There are so many things you have to come down to. There are so many key features that we'll still get to that. So you have to identify the key learning objectives. Each curriculum, it's a pity I can't share my slide. I have a sample curriculum here. And most curriculum, they will give you the objective of that particular topic. So you have to write according to the objective. Your writing at the end of the day must fulfill that objective, the objective of that particular topic. So you have to understand the scope and the sequence of the subject across grade levels. Now, the way you will write for a primary 1 pupil will be different from the way you write from a primary 5 pupil. The way you will write for a child in kindergarten is different from the way you will write from someone in upper primary or even secondary classes. So you have to understand how these subjects develop, how these subjects progress across grade levels. So you have to also be aware of current Well, I must have been speaking to myself because I kept speaking. Yeah. So let's look at understanding it. Let me just take this again. Understanding the curriculum, educational standards. I said it in the introduction that you are writing for a curriculum. So you must understand the dictates, the demands, the content of every curriculum. Also, you also identify the key learning objectives for each grade. Each curriculum has the objectives what they want you to achieve with that topic. So you have to align your writing with the objectives of that topic for that grade level. So you also need to understand the scope and sequence of subjects across levels. Now, the way you will present a topic, the same topic for a primary 1 class, is different from the way you will present it in a primary 5 or secondary class. So you have to understand how to present topic according to the grade level. Then also you need to understand recent changes in curriculum. They change this curriculum, they change them. So you have to understand changes. You have to understand if there's a change in curriculum. Don't write in 2025 using a 2018-2019 curriculum. Also, in your topic, you must be familiar with changes in the educational system. I was citing an example, like you want to write a social studies textbook and there's a topic on the national anthem. Now you start writing Arise O Compatriots, you can see that that's not appropriate in 2025 because that particular national anthem has been changed. So you have to familiarize yourself with all of these things. Also, you must familiarize yourself with the tests, exams that the pupils you are writing for will take. For example, if you are writing for a primary 5 class, you know that that class will take common entrance. You're writing for a JSS 3 student, you know, they are going to write Becker, they are going to write some other entrance examinations, they are going to write to WAEC when they get to SS3. So these are things you have to understand. These are standards, educational standards that you must understand. So let's move on. So the next thing is research and market analysis. You must do your research. You are not the first person to publish that kind of textbook in the market. There are existing textbooks in that that particular field you want to write. I don't think there is anything under this sun that someone has not written about. And when it comes to educational publishing, there are textbooks. There are so many textbooks. Now you have to pick up some of these textbooks. Yeah, now you're not copying, because when you copy, that's plagiarism. You're not copying, but you're picking up these textbooks to do a competitor analysis. Now you have to compare these textbooks. What are the strengths? What are the things they have covered? What are those gaps they have left? How can I come in? How can I fill these gaps and make my own writing a lot better? Now that's the purpose of your market research. That's the purpose of you getting these textbooks and analyzing them. So you have to now go ahead and create approaches that can identify, that can address the gaps that you have identified so that you can meet the market needs. The next one, please. So now this is very, very key, knowing your audience. I said effective textbooks are tailored to the cognitive and academic development of a target age group. Now, we said earlier that you are writing for pupils, you are writing for students. Now, the way you will write for a kindergarten is different from for a child in kindergarten, is different from the way you will write for someone in SS classes. So you have to understand the typical developmental stage of each age group. Now, when we're talking about the play group or the pre-primary classes, they are looking at ages 2 to 5. You know, children start school early these days, particularly in our nation, Nigeria. So you're looking at age 2. Now, how do I present this topic to, age 2 child? How do I present this topic to someone that is age 3, age 4, age 5? So you have to present your topic in a way that the user will understand. Consider your vocabulary too. You can't start using jargon. You can't start using big grammar to write for someone in pre-primary or even primary classes. Before you can start using elevated language, you look at maybe for a primary 5, or in fact, you still have to reduce the kind of grammar of your vocabulary. You still have to make sure that your vocabulary is something they can easily digest. I'm sure you don't want to write a textbook that a child will need the attention of their parents to study. I mean, you should be able to write a textbook that a child can study independently. So if my child comes home with a textbook that each time he or she wants to use that textbook, I have to be there to explain, you have not fulfilled your purpose. So also you have to use appropriate examples. You use relatable examples. You consider the real world that these children live in. What are those things they are familiar with? Now, using appropriate example, you have to contextualize your example. You can't afford to start using, talking about, we want to talk about the weather in Nigeria, start talking about snow and all of that. They are not familiar with it. Yes, they may watch it in cartoons, they may watch that on, elsewhere, but when it comes to what they are familiar with, what they can relate to, yeah, you talk about rainy season, you talk about dry season, you talk about harmattan. So use examples that the children can be familiar with. I remember when I was in Macmillan, and there was this UK branch of Macmillan that wanted to hello, can you still hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So I remember when I was in Macmillan, and the UK arm of Macmillan was trying to publish a textbook, English language textbook, for use in Nigeria. The only thing they did was they wrote the manuscript in the UK. They wrote the manuscripts in the UK. They got the graphic artists in the UK. They got their illustrators from the UK. Everything UK, writers, now English, they felt. So by the time they brought some of the copies they printed to Nigeria, and our team had to sit, and we were the marketing team in Nigeria, and then was going to be the one to market the book. We saw a lot of things. See, these things you have to go back to your drawing board and start all over. The examples they used were UK based, the characters and all. So to adapt that book to the Nigerian context, they had to move with some of our sales reps into Nigeria. In fact, I remember there was a time they had to go to, there's a popular market in Ibadan, Bodija market. They had to go to the Bodija market to see what a typical market in Nigeria is. When they drill their home market, the market in the UK, you can imagine what that would look like. So we have to take them to a typical Nigerian market, take them to Bodija market. This is what a market, their illustrator, I'm talking about their illustrator now, took the illustrator to a market in Nigeria, took them to some, when they had to talk about festivals, they had to tour the country. And by the time they came out with all of these corrections effected, that book was one of the best-selling books Macmillan had then. So you have to use appropriate examples. Now, you also have to consider the learning style. The learning styles of, sorry, there's a mistake on my learning. The learning styles of children. There are children that, they are attracted to visuals, some auditory, some hands-on experience. So you have to put all of these things into consideration. Your textbook must be comprehensive so that it will cater to children who are, who connect more with the audio, who connect more with visual, who connect more with hands-on experience. For example, now you can go ahead and prepare a CD to accompany your textbook. That will cater to those that, learn more through auditory. Now for visuals, you can draw graphs, you can put pictures, illustrations that would really, really explain what you are talking about. And you can also include, for those that are familiar, that learn through the kinesthetic, you can give them hands-on practicals, hands-on exercises, things that will make them practice outside the classroom. So by the time you do all of this, yes, you have a thorough understanding of who your audience is. So you can be able to write a textbook that will meet both the needs of the students and the teachers. Let's move on to the next, to number 4. The next, please.
Should I skip this one?
Okay, yeah. This is the next, structuring your content. Now, how do you structure your content? I want us to stay within 1 hour, but it's a pity we started we had technical issues initially. So structuring your content, yeah, make sure you break down your content into into modules and chapters according to the curriculum. When you say a typical curriculum for a particular subject, there will be topics. So you can now break these topics down into chapters or modules. Then you have subtopics under them. Also, it is best that you scaffold your content. And what do I mean by that? You go from known to unknown. You go from simple to complex. Don't start from the complex and then move to the simple. No, you graduate the understanding of the pupils, of the students. You move from simple to complex. Also, you have to include clear learning objectives. What do you want to achieve with this section? What do you want to achieve at the end of this module? I was looking through the curriculum before we started, and I saw a curriculum on social studies talking about our environment. I think it's a primary 2 curriculum talking about the environment. Yes, there are different kinds of environment. That's when you start hearing about desert environment, lowland environment, the physical environment, and all of that. So what do you want to achieve with this kind of topic? So you must determine that before you start writing. You want to expose the children, the students, to the kinds of environment around them. So you must be clear of your objectives. Then you must use consistent structuring. I mean, you start some textbooks start with the opening, like an opening paragraph that's, like an introduction. Some start with listing out the objectives. Some start with defining key terms that pupils will meet in the textbook. Some, different, just be creative with the way you start and make sure that you maintain that particular structure throughout your writing. So you can include sections like key terms, like introduction. Maybe at the end of that chapter, you can include a summary, like a recap of what you have done. Then you can, give review questions. This will help the students to test their understanding. In fact, it's also going to help the teachers to, form assessments for the students. Also incorporate frequent knowledge checks, yes, like summaries, like assessments, and all of that. So you ensure that there's a balance of text, visuals, and activities. So these are things you have to look at. Text must be balanced with the visuals. You don't just bring in a strange visual. The visual must complement your text. So there has to be a balance between your text and your visual, and even the activities. You can't give them activities on what you have not taught them in that particular section. Let's move on. Yes, writing style and tone. Just like there are styles for writing for every genre, for every kind of niche that you have under the sun. Also, we have our own writing style in educational writing. Yes, this one is even more common to all kinds of writing using active voice and direct language. Yes, in this kind of writing, so you make sure that you relate with your audience. Then avoid jargon. I said that earlier, and overly complex terminologies. Yes, you can't start talking about photosynthesis is even still pupils in primary school, even in nursery can still understand photosynthesis to to an extent. But there are some advanced science terminologies now using that for you just make the students lose interest easily. So be careful of the terms you use. Then don't use inappropriate analogies and examples. There can be, so many textbooks these days. A lot of critics now have started picking so many things out of textbooks used in schools in Nigeria. Inappropriate analogies, talking about using vulgar languages, even in textbooks, because a lot of people so many people just pick, just because they can publish, just write anything. So you have to be careful how you present your topics. Then incorporate questions to promote critical thinking. Then you vary your sentence structure to maintain rhythm and interest. The next. Yes, visuals. I mentioned this earlier, and your layouts, your visuals, your border. Now, the way we do the visuals for a kindergarten or a preschool textbook is different from how we would do for senior secondary classes. Now, the visuals for a preschool, you use most of the time, you use illustrations. You use a lot of illustrations because that's what the children at that level can are familiar with. So you use a lot of visual design, something that will catch their attention. Yeah, and most times when you see books published at that level, you see them, you see that they are colorful. They don't use black and white most of the time. They use colorful books at that level. I'm saying all of this because by the time you are writing, there's something we call brief in our writing, illustration brief in educational writing. You are going to instruct, you are the one, you are the alpha and the omega of your idea. You are the one, you already have your hand in mind. So you already know what your objective is for that topic. So you are the one that will, instruct the illustrator on what to draw. Now, let's take, for example, you are writing about a family. Now, there has to be an illustration brief in that chapter that will tell you, okay, give me the illustration of a family, a nuclear family. There are different kinds of family now. Give me the illustration. You are telling the illustrator that. Give me the illustration of a nuclear family. You can say a family of four, in a modern, sitting down in a modern sitting room, so that at the end of the day, the person will not go and draw lantern on the table for a book that will be used in 2025. Most children will not be familiar with. Lantern now. I'm talking about lantern that has globe. Yeah, I don't know how many of us know that kind of. Mr. Ladele, I'm sure you understand. You know that kind of
Yes, I know. I do.
lantern. So you don't go and write, put
Exactly.
lantern in a book that is to be used. Most of the children will be like, what is this? Because they are not familiar with that. Or you put all these black and white television of 19 Gbogboro. That's why you have to give explicit brief to your illustrator. Draw me a nuclear family sitting in a modern sitting room. So by the time you say modern, then the person should be able to interpret modern to be, there will be smart TVs, there will be gadgets in the house and all of that. That's the children. It's just to make sure that the children are familiar with what you are doing. So your visuals and your layout must also be appealing depending on the level you are writing for. Now, the next. Now, this is the cocoa. How do we make money from writing elementary and high school books? Now, before you consider making money from LI writing, you have to do the following. I always advise, one, you have to be interested in what you are doing. You must be passionate about it. You must be familiar with educational standards. You understand? Like as I said, I would like you to please develop educational materials for subjects you are versed in. Develop for subjects you are versed in. Know what you are writing about. Don't just pick up and start writing for what you are not familiar with. As a matter of fact, I advise that those that want to go into LI writing should be people who maybe by the virtue of the kind of work they do, they relate with the classroom. People who have relationship with the classroom. It's easier for you when you have relationship with the classroom. You maybe are a teacher, maybe you're an instructor that you even if you don't have a relationship with the classroom, go and study what is expected of you. Don't just write for writing's sake. Write to conform to the curriculum. curriculum, write to, appeal to your users to write something that they can, that would impact them. So like, okay, let me cite an example now. The computer studies textbook that my children use in their school was put together by a man that has in Ibadan. I know the man. He has a an information technology school where he teaches information technology. So he most times he teaches pupils outside the classroom. But to be able to write for that, for write textbooks from books 1 to 6 that will be used in schools, he had to sit down with the curriculum and he structured his writing according to the demands of the curriculum. So even if you are not someone that works in a school, but you have to study the educational system and write something that is in line with the standards that we run. So you also have to consider educational resources such as textbooks. Yeah, it's not only books. You can write workbooks, you can write teacher's guide. You can also come up with digital resources. Then you have to build relationship with schools, like I said. Also, you have to attend conferences, workshops, book fairs. All of these will help you to familiarize yourself with the school system. Also, make sure you are passionate about imparting knowledge. Don't just write to make money. Don't let money making be your goal, your number one goal. Yes, you want to make money, but beyond making money, you want to leave a legacy. You want to impact lives. You want to share from your knowledge, from what you know. You want the world to also benefit from what you know. So make sure you do all of these things before you start considering profiting from LI writing. Next, please. Now, what are those things you can do to profit from LI writing? Now, you can go the traditional publishing route. Yes, this is when you write and you walk up to a publisher, particularly an educational publisher. There are so many educational publishers out there. So you don't just take your book to any publisher. These publishers too, they have their market. Now, I don't know if TRC publishes educational books, but going to Mr. Babatunde now. Mr. Babatunde, do you publish educational books that are used? Do you publish LI books?
Well, we publish for independent authors, depending
Okay,
on what they
yeah,
want to publish.
yes.
But we
So
are not
you can publish for
customized
you.
for airline
But
writing.
in that light, what you do is you just publish and take your books. So you are
Exactly.
going to now decide how you sell your book.
Sure.
So yes, but there are some publishers who will take your book from the manuscript level to the market. They will publish for you, they will do the illustrations, they will do everything, and they will sell. Most educational publishers, that's what they do. They already have a market. They already have marketers. They already have sales representatives that sell their books to the end users. So you may go through them. You may go through independent, publishing houses that don't really cater to educational publishing. But in that case, they will just print for you, hand over your copies to you, then you decide how to sell. You can also do freelance content writing. Most of these educational publishers also request the services of writers who are familiar with the school environment and the um, curriculum to also develop some. So if you're a teacher here and you just want to um, also publish, also write, you can walk up to all these educational publishers and offer them writing services. And also these publishers, to some of them, have websites. Their content in that light will be tailored towards educational development. So you can also offer your content writing services to educational publishers or people in the ed tech who write, who publish on their blogs, on their website. You can write educational content. In that light, you're not writing textbook. You are writing, you can, I mean, you just be creative about it. So you can write for website, you can write for publishing companies. Also, you can do the self-publishing route, like what Mr. Ladele said. You can just create and sell your books. They can be ebooks, they can be hard copies, but most times for use in schools, how many schools use ebooks? Nigeria has not developed that level. And we talk about abroad now, there are so many ebooks that pupils use in the classroom. But in Nigeria, how many schools have internet facilities? How many schools have technology that they can use to, use such books? So just, you know, package your book in such a way that you will sell at the end of the day, except you are just doing charity. You just want to write and publish and just, make the books available to pupils for use. Yes, you will be rewarded. I'm sure God would, in his infinite mercy, will reward you. Yeah, so we can also look at online courses and workshops. There are online courses, there are courses that, you can train teachers on how to treat particular topics, how to, handle the classroom and all of that. So you can also license your work to edtech companies. There are so many edtech companies these days. You can write stories and give them, to publish for you based on negotiation and, percentages. Let's move on. We're moving on to, gradually getting to the end of the class. The next slide, please. Number 8. Yes. So now these are practical tips I want to, yes, let me go back to what I said earlier. When you are talking about going to traditional publishers to publish for you, please, please, I want to emphasize this. Make sure that you have a contract. Make sure that you have a contract. Yes, they will give you royalties for um hard copies, for books. Yes, let me say for books. You have between 10 and 15% as royalty. Then for digital products, you have like between 15 and 20%, I think. But make sure that you have a contract. Whichever publishing firm you're working with, make sure you have a contract with them. Make sure you have a contract. There are so many stories that touch when it comes to issues of royalty. Make sure you have a contract with them. And there are some authors too that sell their rights, their publishing rights. Well, I don't usually support or advice to do that. But if you feel that you just want to collect your money once and for all, just make sure there's a contract between you and the publishing firm you're working with. Now, research trends. I mean, talking about practical tips now that you as an aspiring highlight writer can, you that as an aspiring LI writer can look at trends. That's people are talking so much about science, um, technology, and maths these days. If you are someone in that field, you can write something that would, you know, help pupils in that area. Also, today we are talking about learning beyond classroom. We are talking about um, students are not prepared for the outside world. How do we make sure that both all the skills that they need, how do we make sure that they get them in education? Well, I know the Nigerian educational system, the Nigerian curriculum needs to be rebranded, needs to be, in fact, it needs a total overhaul, because the curriculum we run now, for me, it's kind of defective, but I believe that there's work going on reviewing the curriculum. So by the time this is done, if there are areas you can come in to give us books that would teach digital literacy, books that would teach emotional intelligence and all of this, just be creative and make sure that you impart knowledge. Yes, you have to build a portfolio. People often ask, what do you do? What kind of writing do you do? So you can just have samples of your work so as to show your knowledge so as to show what you can do. Then join professional bodies in your field and attend educational conferences. You join professional bodies that will help you in this kind of writing. Also collaborate with illustrators. You can't do the publishing, LI publishing, you can't do it alone. No, you must collaborate with illustrators. Those are the people that draw. They draw. You collaborate with graphic designers. You work with editors and other other people, other educators to produce high quality materials. And never um never ever um do go without continuous learning. In every sphere, in every endeavor, learning is continuous. So continue learning, take courses in education, take courses in curriculum design, take courses in content creation like you are doing, just to enhance your skill. Thank you very much. That's all we have for tonight. I welcome questions and feedback from you all.
Thank you very much, our dear facilitator, for this very wonderful presentation. Deborah, over to you. Can take questions. Is Deborah still here? Deborah. Hello, is Deborah here?
Yes, sir. Hello, sir.
Please, take over, please.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ma, for this. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yes, Ma. I want to extend appreciation for this wonderful session
Thank you for
today.
the
I want
audience.
to believe the interns have had a great time and understood everything that you